What is a man? This week, I was inspired by a recent documentary from the Babylon Bee and today's readings on masculinity and fatherhood. So I want to build upon last week's homily and answer an equally crucial and important question: what is a man? Before I share my answer, it's good for us to realize once again our culture is constantly giving us answers already to the question, what is a man? And to help us understand these answers, I have some familiar objects. You might remember last week I have the pedestal again, and I have a doormat. So the first answer our culture has given us is symbolized by this pedestal. What is a man? A man is someone to idolize. This answer, inspired by cultural icons like Bond, James Bond, Agent 007, the self-sufficient hero capable of killing any man and winning any woman he wants, is really a cultural icon of the sexual revolution that's dramatically answered the question, what is a man? A man is someone to idolize. Now, although we might not be playboys and cold-blooded killers like James Bond, we are all tempted as men to get on that pedestal, to take the spotlight so that we can be idolized by others. At a deeper level of the heart, we're really hoping that we can prove to others that we are real men. That's why we get on the spotlight. It's that desire to prove your masculinity. Now, what does this look like? Well, I'll be vulnerable and share some ways that I tried to get on the pedestal throughout my life. So when I was in high school at Vancouver College, I tried to get on the pedestal by getting the highest grade in every class, so smarter than any guy, and winning golf tournaments, so that I could prove that that was the way through sports, that I was a man. And when I was in university in California, I tried to get on that pedestal in more ways, like buying expensive things or trying to hook up with beautiful girls. And still today, I can try to get tempted by going on that pedestal, maybe in more self-centered ways, like how I spend my free time. Now, the result of this false pursuit of masculinity, trying to get on the pedestal, is that like James Bond, we end up as immature boys. That's really the result of getting on the pedestal. You become an immature boy. You're unable to take responsibility for others. It's all about me, myself, and I. And that's the first answer our culture has given us to the question, what is a man? A man is someone to idolize. Now, our culture has also seen the tragic effects of this answer. What have we seen? It's called toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity. And like the men in today's first reading, if you know the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, what's the tragedy that God's so outraged by? Men sexually abusing other people. That's the whole story of the first reading. And that's the result of this James Bond mentality in which you use your strength as a man for selfish pursuits, trying to be idolized by other people. Now, our culture has also given us another answer, a second extreme answer as well, to go on the opposite side of this pursuit of the pedestal. And it's really due to all the abuses of toxic masculinity. So the symbol is this doormat. This is the symbol of the latest answer our culture is giving us to the question, what is a man? Because everything in life we idolize, we eventually despise. It's a truth about life. Everything we idolize, we eventually despise. We also have another vision, image of what masculinity looks like. And I think the cultural icon for this image is Homer Simpson. He's the classic image of a lazy, incompetent father who avoids any pursuit of virtue. He avoids any pursuit of responsibility in his family. He avoids any hard work. And it's really why our culture can laugh at Homer Simpson, apart from many other foolish things that he does, is that he really shows masculinity in a despicable way, in which people say, well, masculinity, if those are the images of what it looks like to be a father, what it looks like to be a man, you just treat it like a doormat. You just get rid of that. You get rid of masculinity. And that's what our culture is continuing to do. So we might not be overweight and alcoholics like Homer, but every single man here is tempted to the Homer Simpson mentality, in which you just become a lazy bum. You avoid responsibility, you avoid leadership, you avoid hard work, You just sit on the couch. And as a result, many men have continually given in to this comfortable, pleasure-seeking, easy way out. So that's the second answer. What is a man? A man is someone to despise. Now, as a result of this, if we look at these are the two extreme answers our culture has given us to what is a man, what is the effects this is having upon men? What is the effects? Just think about it. Our culture is giving two extreme answers for masculinity. On the one hand, men are being bombarded with sexually charged images and this lifestyle of James Bond as one pursuit of masculinity. And then it's also at the same time saying, if you pursue that, we're going to call you out as part of this culture of toxic masculinity. And so men feel torn. They feel divided. These cultural images are tearing men apart. And that's what's happening to men. In 2017, listen to this. There's a study that came out. Who do you think has a higher suicide rate, men or women? What do you think? The suicide rate for men is 3.5 times higher than women. Highest among middle-aged white men, who account for 70% of all suicides in 2017. I wonder whether, in the heart of those men who ended up in that tragic response, whether they just feel like who they are as men is just impossible to live out because the culture is tearing them apart with these contradictory messages. Now, once again, I'm presenting the bad news, right? Because the good news needs to shine forth. So if we can realize the bad news of these two images, then the good news of the gospel becomes great news. And that is the great news. So what would you say is an image of masculinity? Last week I said that the tabernacle is the image of the female body. What do you think is the image of the male body? Look just above the tabernacle. The crucifix. That is the image of the masculine body. That is what a man is supposed to be. Who's with me? Yippee, right? Let's do this. Let's get crucified. But it truly is the image of what a man is supposed to be. Now, we know that crucifix is made for a great purpose. It reveals the greatest sign ever of God's self-giving love. That's what a crucifix shows us. And everything about that crucifix, from the wooden beams to Jesus' pierced hands, all point to that greater sign. God's greatest gift of self-giving love produces abundant life, eternal life. That is what the sign is. And the same is true for the man's body. That's why the man's body can be understood only by looking at the crucifix. Because everything about a man's body, everything, from his strength to his private parts, everything points to self-giving love. It points to fatherhood. That is fundamentally why men are made in the unique way biologically, pointing everything to fatherhood. Now, this doesn't just mean that I'm calling you to get women pregnant all the time to go be a father like that. That is not what masculinity and fatherhood looks like. It's not just biological, it is spiritual. That's why every single man, myself included, who is not a biological father, is called to the fullness of fatherhood, which Jesus reveals perfectly. That's why Jesus Christ crucified on the cross is the image of masculinity. Because a father is called to give life, and there is no greater sign of giving abundant life than what you see by looking at a crucifix. Now look at Jesus. Just think about Jesus for a second as the image of masculinity, as the image of fatherhood. Okay, what did Jesus do? He had all the power in the world. Did he use it for selfish pursuits? Did he take the James Bond approach? No. Did he give in to the fear of suffering? Did he drop the cross and go for a comfortable life? He could have. No, he didn't take the Homer Simpson approach either. Jesus used all of his strength, all of his masculine strength, his own male body. For what purpose? To give life. To give life. That's what you see in the cross. The greatest sign of masculinity, the greatest sign of fatherhood, in which you use your strength not for selfish pursuits, but to give life to other people. So a question for all men here, and for all women whose husbands are not here at this Mass, Or for children, you can think about your fathers right now, okay? What approach to masculinity and fatherhood are you pursuing? Are you taking the pedestal approach? Are you trying to take the spotlight, to be idolized by other people, like James Bond? Or are you taking the doormat approach? Have you just given up in the pursuit of virtue, giving in to comfort and pleasure, like Homer Simpson? Or are you taking the crucified approach? Is the crucifix your image, in which that's where you're finding your masculinity and fatherhood, like Jesus laying down your life for others? Men, we actually live in what you've heard is called a fatherless culture. And it's not just physical presence, it is spiritual presence. Our culture is starved for real images of fathers. Fathers who are capable of giving life to other people. So it's time for men to step up and to say no to everything that makes you seek that pedestal and give in to the selfish way of life. Like James Bond, it's time for men to step up and to say no to everything that makes you become like a doormat, giving into the comfortable, pleasure-seeking life like Homer Simpson. And it's time to say yes, to stand up and to say yes to everything that makes you give your life, all of your masculine strength for other people. Just to conclude, on Friday morning, I hiked the Grouse Grind again. And every single time I hike the Grouse Grind, there's always that temptation. It's like, maybe I'm too tired, or maybe, I'll do it another time. It's kind of a difficult thing to do. And I called 6 guys. There were 6 guys from this parish, young men, who they probably would have been sleeping Friday morning. I called them, and these men stood up. These men got out of their beds early Friday morning, came to Mass, and then we hiked the Grouse Grind together. And the Grouse Grind, I find, is one of the absolute best images of the difficulty of the masculine journey. It is hard. When I say that the crucifix is the model of masculinity, I'm saying this is the hardest thing ever. It is truly like hiking a spiritual Grouse Grind. And it would have been easy for these guys to pursue the Homer Simpson approach and just sleep in their beds once again on a summer morning. Or we could have done the James Bond approach and just gone up the gondola ourselves and pretended that we achieved something great. But these men stood up. These men got out of their comfortable beds and they pursued something great. And every single guy, I guarantee, as a result of getting up out of his comfortable life and doing something masculine, something strong, they felt alive when we reached the top. So, I'd like to challenge all men right here. If you want to be a man, like Jesus Christ, if pursuing fatherhood in imitation of Christ is the type of life that you want to live, if you're sick of the cultural images of masculinity, like James Bond and like Homer Simpson, if you're tired of this life and you want to live a life that is alive, like Jesus Christ, then I ask you, men, stand up right now if this is the life you want to live.